Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I'm going to be very brief. I've been warned a lot by Jackie. I'm just going to start by introducing myself briefly. I'm from Sligo. I studied in GMIT, UCD, and in Tsinghua University in Beijing. I spent 7 years living and working in China, the last 2 in London, and just in the last 2 months I moved back to Cork, so not sure which the bigger culture change was, China or Cork. I work for Aramark. Aramark is a global food service company. We have about $14 billion in revenue, and we're based in Philadelphia. We have about 250,000 employees worldwide, and we operate in 22 countries, including many European countries. Sorry, I'm not sure if that's coming back. My core role in the organization is to manage global sporting events. We also manage very large events such as the FIFA World Cup, but in particular my focus is on managing the Summer Olympic Games. In Ireland, we operate in food service, workplace solutions, property and healthcare. We have about 4,000 employees operating in 980 locations. We procure about 45 million euros worth of food within Ireland from Irish suppliers, and we procure about 400 million euros worth of food in Europe. Sorry, struggling with this. This morning I'm going to focus on a couple of key themes that are pertinent to our business. I'm going to focus a little bit on elite athletes and how their focus on nutrition and diet is changing. I'm going to focus on food allergies, which is something that's very close to our hearts. Focus on health and wellness and the changes that we see in our business around health and wellness. Sustainability and food security in particular has been a huge challenge for us, in particular over the last couple of months. And then finally, I'll just touch a little bit on emerging markets and the opportunities there. Elite athletes focus on energy, they focus on hydration, and they focus on muscle recovery. There's also a huge focus on amateur athletes who are moving, increasingly engaging into sports nutrition and exercise in a more professional way. The World Anti-Doping Association are becoming much more vigilant in monitoring athletes and their doping habits. And PINES, which is the Professionals for Nutrition and Exercise in Sport, is the other organisation that we work very closely with when we're planning the diets for elite athletes for the Summer Olympic Games. And just to give you a brief on the Summer Games, we serve in about 60 days. We serve about 3.6 million meals. We procure about 200,000 tons of food just for the Games, and we feed athletes from all over the world, so we have a dietary requirement for food types from all over the world. Athletes focus mostly now on recovery drinks, on food, and on supplements. And I know there are lots of organisations that are focusing on this category, in particular Glanbia in Ireland, who've done a lot of inroads into focusing on drinks and food that's easily digestible. And there's a massive opportunity still in the market to focus on products that are based on milk whey and byproducts, focus on cheeses such as cottage cheeses, Greek yogurts, and other such ingredients which are very easy to digest. The PINES team, which are a group of sports nutritionalists from all over the world, are focusing on simple proteins, but they're focusing on nose to tail eating, which is really eating the whole animal as opposed to just a chicken breast. And that really comes back to the whole sustainability piece and using simple preparations. Finally, one of the big changes that we've seen in the diets of athletes is a move towards more fermented foods. And I think this is another opportunity for people who are working in manufacturing and the food business. I'm not sure if anybody's had the opportunity to taste kimchi, which is the Korean staple food of pickled cabbage. Well, in the recent Summer Games in London, we were procuring more kimchi than probably any other type of food because of the change in fermented eating habits, and because of the excellent source of probiotics and the fact that it helps the body to digest food. So kimchi, pickled beans, fermented beans, all of this kind of idea is something that's really focused for athletes. Moving on to food allergens, and this really covers both athletes and our day-to-day consumers. There are about 30 million people in the developed world who are now suffering from allergens of some description. And there has been a huge increase even from elite athletes of about 12% in the last 10 years. So that's athletes who have multiple allergens, who have to restrict their diet in terms of what they can eat and what they can digest. Some of them are very serious allergens, and some of them are allergens that just don't contribute to the best performance. There's a huge challenge in the business at the moment because there's really a thought or a hypothesis that has suggested that better sanitation and cleanliness really does impact the immune system. The immune system mistakes food proteins for foreign bacteria and viruses, and this results in the body literally fighting or attacking some of the proteins or some of the carbohydrates that people try to eat. Vitamin D deficiency is one of the other focuses that may be linked to nut and egg allergies in particular. I think there's a huge opportunity again within this category of food to focus on gluten-free food, to focus on wheat-free, to focus on lupin, dairy, egg, nut, and this is really based on allergen-free ingredients that are tasty, that are convenient, and that are value for money. So there's an opportunity there. I suppose focusing a little bit on our day-to-day consumers, health and wellness is really a huge focus, but we found in our latest research throughout the world that it's not just about diets. It's more about simplifying the way we communicate to people. It's about helping people to understand what a balanced diet of 2,000 or 2,500 calories per day is, and it's about focusing and understanding what saturated fats are about and what role they play in your diet. The research in the US has actually shown that focusing on calorie count alone does not help consumers make choices, and in fact they don't make choices just based on calories alone. One of the other changes that we've seen in our business is that there are no traditional day parts anymore. People tend to graze a lot, they have lunch on the run, breakfast is something that's a light, fast and healthy meal, and that changes the whole way that we consume the 2,000 calories or 2,500 calories a day that we focus on. There's also a focus on fast but good food, so food that's high quality but that's healthy and that can really sustain the body. And one of the latest trends we've seen is about 2 years ago, we work very much in the education sector in the United States and throughout Europe, and you find that students have a lot more messaging about sustainability and about understanding what the messages are that they want to deliver to people all over the world. And we started to focus on Meatless Mondays, which is one day in the week where there is no meat consumed. So there is a focus then on, from a consumer perspective, on finding items within a whole range of menus that you would typically have on for a day, to find items that are very protein driven but not meat. So things like tofu, things like beans, things like chickpeas, all of these kind of things. We're launching that in Ireland this year in our education sector, and we're piloting it in some of the kind of key universities to understand what the feedback is, and this is feedback we get from our consumers every day. Just touching a little bit on food security, and I know it's talked out at this stage. The first couple of months of this year were extremely challenging in relation to the horse meat scandal. What we've seen in our business is that it's been one of the biggest drivers of consumer mindset change. It's the first time where people have really focused on what they're eating, and for us as an organisation who are providing thousands of meals every day, we have to be able to talk about traceability right down to a level where we would have never focused before. And that's really not so much on protein, on poultry and chicken, but it's much more about beef and pork and lamb to a certain extent. And information about animal welfare and animal care is now becoming part of our daily discussions with our clients. We work with clients from Fortune 500 companies all over the world, and with here in Ireland. There's an absolute desire in our market and in our business to have premium products, and we feed huge amounts of workforce every day who have a limited amount of money to spend. This has to be balanced with cost. It has to be balanced then with also constantly reassuring customers, and I think that's one of, for us, that's a challenge in our business where we have to focus on food safety and assurance in terms of DNA testing. And just finally, touching on emerging markets in China, I know a lot of people talk about how to do business in China and what are the opportunities. Having spent 7 years living and working in China with the highest level of government running the likes of the Beijing Olympics, it is a slow burn to do business in China. But there is a massive opportunity. I talked last night with some of my colleagues, and we talked about the benefits of Ireland's food safety subject matter experts, people that are coming through our system. And likewise in the UK, there's some of the best people in the world. That's an opportunity to transfer that learning to China, where there's a huge level of theoretical education, but the practical application of that is very weak. Social stability, for anybody who's familiar with the China market, is the government's key #1 priority. And within that, assuring basic food safety and basic food supply is their #1 priority. Their arable land is reducing. Land and soil quality is very poor. So there's a huge opportunity for Irish businesses to be involved in entry in pork, beef, wheat, soya, and fish. And Ireland and the UK have the perfect natural resource to continue to grow these markets. It is certainly a slow burn. There are entry strategies such as lobbying and using the government departments, and they are doing a fantastic job at focusing on Tier 1 cities. But then there's also the other side, which is investing and building relationships with Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, which are huge in terms of population. And really transferring practical knowledge and application to those areas and building links that way, that opens up opportunities then to enter into the China market. And of course, it's really important to understand the consumer in China and to adapt your products accordingly. So finally, just very quickly, in terms of the collaboration from today, I think it's important that we look at pooling resources, particularly to develop the China market, to help build transparent and trusted food safety assurance, and as a result of doing that, to grow the opportunity for exports to China. To simplify our messages about food provenance, I think consumers are very, very confused about labelling, about traceability, and about the challenges around all of those areas, and really to target research and growth in sports nutrition to fuel recovery, and that also allows you to grow into the amateur sports professional. And finally, innovation in healthy fast food. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much indeed, Catherine. We do need to move on in a moment, but Catherine, I should mention we'll be back later for the panel debate, so an opportunity to ask questions. But are there any, hang on, Catherine, don't go away yet for a second, any burning questions for Catherine before we move on? I do have one for you, very, very quick one. You highlighted there some of the areas where there is enormous potential for innovation and some of the things we need to do. You mentioned consumers and you mentioned health and well-being as a key driver for innovation. Question, how important is this communication in order to get the acceptance and the demand for innovative products that enables you to make them profitable?
The communication to the consumer or to the
communication to the consumer, because you underlined it several times.
Yes. I think communication around these areas is really important. The consumers are not really sure what they want. They know they want to eat healthily. They know they want to eat something that's sustainable. They know they want to eat something that's local, but they want to do it in a way that's value for money. And I think they're the key messages that you have to get out to consumers in looking at innovation. It's not just enough to innovate and have something that's out of the reach of the day-to-day customer. It has to be within the reach.
Thank you. It's something I hope we'll come back to in the panel. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, join me in thanking Catherine very much indeed.